unborn son, to the black boy that will bear my name, to the children, brown and white, citizen and immigrant, gendered and non, that will walk in the legacy of the students, of the voices and bodies that gathered today, that made their way to this moment in history to stand, to walk, and to say no. A letter to my son. There was once a time where bullets were exchanged instead of words, where heads ducked under tables, teachers instructed in the tone of the 100 of lives lost, on where to hide, on how to defend, on how to prepare for the inevitable. A time where the gatekeepers of our society had their hands in the pockets of those more concerned with the rhetoric of the Second Amendment and not the seconds it takes to kill. A letter to my son. A realization that the beauty that makes his skin glimmer like the space between the constellations will be an unescapable mark of a target imprinted onto his back, stamped onto his foot, and tied to the bag that will hopefully never bear his name. A letter to my son. Days when hate spilled like honey from a fallen hive, poured over the earth with drizzles so sweet that when it stuck, we could not wipe it away. It crystallized upon us and left us loving every soundbite, Twitter feud, and news segment. Days when my body would rise to meet the sun as it made its appearance, and with the surety of the same sun to rise each day, I'm greeted with the news update. Breaking news. 2 dead in bombings in Austin. Unarmed male shot in his Sacramento backyard. 17 dead at the latest school shooting in Parkland, Florida. I am greeted with the notion that violence is the norm, that violence is the new black, that violence is an everlasting cycle of destruction, taking any blank surface and painting a piece of art, colors of hate cascading across the canvas, shaded with the brush of ignorance and put on stage for us. On stage for us to gawk, to celebrate, to laugh, to cry, to pray, to scream, to argue, to protest, and not to change. You see, I have a place in mind. A place where I live on a porch somewhere in paradise. I escape. Between the now that is fabricated lies and fallen lives, I know no longer the meaning of progress. Progress, an attempt to domesticate the most wild of beasts, to bring light to the dark, to bring life to the deceased, to be permanent in a world of temporaries, lasting in a system of short measure. But I ask myself, what inspired Rosa to sit, Sojourner to speak, Jane Addams to build her house, and Zaldua to write, Newton to dare to defy? Who brought us to this point? To fight against the greed of man, to push against the status quo, to suspend in the imbalance of terror and peace. You see, on a porch in paradise, I am here. Replacing bullets with hashtags and footsteps, remembering long before the new had exhorted, the old had implored, remembering the progress that must occur now, cannot think in selfish individualism. The flowers that wilted with neglect will bloom with attention, conversing with those in power, no longer to have the consent of the governed, as they are governed with dollar signs and not heartbeats, to rid themselves of seeing humans as investments, as pawns in a game for political partisanship. Let's rise and declare that children be our stakeholders, that our local communities must stand up to stop this, that young people pioneer our futures, set forth a course in uncharted waters, to live in a world where this is the norm. This is the norm. The power of dissent, the power of the people, the power to say no. The time is now, our time to rise with the passion so ignited, all opposition bent to its devotion. It will engulf in spirit, surround us in mind, and push us in action. To my son, who will only know what is before us today. To our children who will not have to march for their lives to tomorrow, a promise to seize the day, to change it, to hold it and say, never again.